Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. Today it's all about Sky Sports Fantasy Football, and there's £50,000 up for grabs for the winner, who may be one of us. Maybe. Today you get a different expression from a Cancelo owner. Okay? Because he's got me 10 points after his benching the previous week. My name is Joe, and joining me ahead of Gameweek 14 is the man who persuaded me to get Cancelo in, Luke. Luke, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, yeah. Feeling better that finally, I say finally, 1 out of 2 he's returned, so that's pretty good. And what was it, 10 points, was it, or something?
It was 10 points, yeah, which
Nice.
I would have taken 5 points from, both across the 2 weeks happily.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Good games to come. Obviously, I think you've got rid of him now anyway,
Yeah,
just
he's gone.
because of that Christmas rotation looming. But yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? DS is just a better pick, isn't he, ultimately? So I agree with that. But yeah, pretty good week for me. I've got 114 points, which isn't that great across some of the Twitter groups I've seen. But when I take into account, I actually only had 7 starting players this week.
That's amazing.
So I swapped 1 to make it 8. I brought in Ward-Prowse on the Monday night, which I gave the armband. So in the end, I had 8, but I had Martinez and Grealish that were obviously postponed from their game. I had Antonio, which I brought in last week, and then obviously he picked up an injury, so didn't play, which was always the risk. I knew the risk of getting him back early. So I had him down, and then Barnes, who inexplicably didn't play a minute despite coming off the bench and winning the game for Leicester last time. I didn't want Barnes. I thought he might be benched for that other game, which he was. But then having seen him come on and turn it around, I really thought I've got to keep him for the Sheffield game because it's such a good game, and he surely will play that one now. He didn't see a minute. So my plan was always to do Barnes to Bamford, who's the exact same price. And I could have done it this weekend, but obviously Leeds were away to Chelsea. So I thought, I don't want to do it this weekend. Of course, Bamford scores in like 2 minutes or something. Gets shots on target. So the plan was always to bring him in this coming, is it Friday, their first game?
Friday,
yeah. So that'll be the move that I do in the future. But it's just annoying to see, Bamford scores when you were going to get him, and then Barnes just doesn't even play. So annoying.
So you've still got Barnes at the moment. Now, for a more FPL related video I was doing earlier in the week with David at Fantasy Football Scout, it applies to Sky as well, because we were looking at Vardy's captaincy potential at home in some of the juicy home matches he's got, and he is not the best asset at home at the moment in terms of shots, in terms of volume of shots, quality of shots. It's actually Harvey Barnes. So if he is going to start, he rather than Vardy could be the man to have at the home matches.
And this is the thing, I fully expect him to frustrate me, because whenever he's actually on the pitch, he's been pretty good, to be fair, because of those shots on target. That's why I've got him. I don't really pick players unless they come with something else apart from just they turn up and might have a wonder performance. He's always got those shots on target in the locker, and every time I watch him I feel like he's the most dangerous player from open play, so that doesn't surprise me. And I'll remove him, and no doubt he'll probably get a couple of hauls, but I feel like in Sky you can't have players that just don't turn up, because you've only got 11, haven't you? And this week showed it. I was already down from the guys that are postponed, and I would have ended up on 7 players. That's just it's nearly half my team. And ultimately, 114, I've done well because of the captains, as usual. If you hadn't hit the captains, it could have been of a shocking week. There's some other people, including yourself, I think we're on like 130 or something, right? So there's still a big 20 point gap here that I've missed out on just by not having the max players.
Yeah, it was one of those weeks for my team, just the way I'm set up. There's no sort of amazing foresight in it. It just happens to be the way. I happen to want Cancelo in and then out again the next day, and then I was going to swap him for Vestergaard in order to get Salah in for Calvert-Lewin. So it was for my personal setup. Calvert-Lewin and Cancelo scored a lovely little golden goodbye for me, and then back on to Salah, who obviously did well, and then Vestergaard was my captain. 138 for me in the end, which I was a bit surprised by, and I'm not sure I'm going to reach those dizzy heights again, but you never know. But I was quite pleased with that. But just one of those weeks. So bad game week looming, no doubt. But it should be okay for us, because
it's a fun one, isn't it?
We've got 6 captains, so we'll come to that a bit later. Let's have a look at some of these Man of the Match awards then from the previous game week, which was game week 13 in Sky. That was Man of the Match is Zaha. Well, no doubt he is the best player on the pitch when players play. KDB and Vardy, no surprises there. Then Rashford, interesting, not Fernandes. Fernandez only played half that match, so may have something to do with it. Højbjerg still trucking along quite nicely in terms of man of the match. And Romeo. Now, I have Vestergaard. You have Ward-Prowse. Neither of them were man of the match. Apparently, it was Romeo. So what do we know? So you must have been pretty annoyed.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'd love it to have been Ward-Prowse. The fact that Ings came on and took the penalty, I mean, as well, he actually had the ball in his hand, and I think he was going to take it. I think if Ward-Prowse had taken that penalty, not only do I obviously get the points for the penalty, but then man of the match would have pretty much been nailed, I think, there. So he was so on the cusp of a fantastic haul, but we always knew that about Ings. But I think Vestergaard owners can count themselves the most unlucky. He was clearly the best player on the day.
I know.
Yeah, and I mean, look on FOTMob's pretty good as a sort of tracking for players and how they're doing in the stats and everything, and they're always pretty good in terms of who was the man of the match. And Romeo was nowhere near. No. He was fine. It was just he wasn't man of the match.
Is this some? I mean, I'm not suggesting that the man of the match people are related to him, Romeo, and I'm not suggesting that, and there's no way would I.
No,
but there's something weird going on. Is someone not? Are they just picking at random, or?
Well, the thing is, the match reporter is different every single time, and a lot of the time they're not actually Sky Sports journalists, as far as I'm aware. They're freelance, like yourself, I think, Joe. So they work for people.
I would have picked Vestergaard.
Yeah, so I think I'd love to see his team. Put it that way. I'd love to see who he's got.
Romeo in his captain. That's who it's got.
Yeah. No, I don't know what's up there. I think sometimes they go with the match reporter. Sometimes they kind of have a statistical pick.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it always comes down to is the match reporter puts on the report. But if the game is live and the commentator picks someone, the match reporter will very rarely deviate from it. It does sometimes, but they've tried to cut that down, I think. So, for some reason they just went with Romeo. I don't know who got called in the actual game. Was it a Sky game? In fact, if it wasn't a Sky game,
I don't.
The Monday night game.
I can't remember. There's so many now.
Yeah, that's the problem.
I don't know, but yeah, it's something to be aware of. Though Romeo is a cheeky man of the match occasionally. So there we go. If you've got him, keep him because he's going to get.
He's a good pick anyway. He's a
good pick anyway. On to some of the others. Passing tier 2, the Leicester defenders and the City lads. Also Gabriel. Did well. So
yeah, wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, Diaz really popular amongst a lot of engaged Sky managers. Obviously, I had Cancelo there. Stones trucking along, and the Leicester defenders. I don't know if there's anything particular about those matches. Were easy matches for them? I guess they had a lot of possession.
Well, I think now Fofana is looking good. I mean, Leicester aren't keeping clean sheets, so that is looking bad, obviously. But at his price. He's 6.1 million, I think he is. And he's been on the cusp of my thoughts all the time. Let me just check his price to be sure on that. I think it's 6.1. 6.1 million. So Fofana, he's looked really good on the eye test. His first few games for the team, he looked great. Like he's slotted in, done well. Had a couple of iffy games, but overall, he looked like he was a pretty good player. Obviously, Leicester, top 6 potential. You'd expect more clean sheets than this. But the problem he was having is he wasn't really getting bonus. So to me, it wasn't that appealing. Because if you remember, Soyuncu from last season was 6.2 million. So it's basically the equivalent of him, except Soyuncu was churning out bonus left, right, and centre. So there's no real reason why Fofana wouldn't if he's playing in the exact same position, right? You just thought that he might be able to do it. However, I looked at the stats for the last 4 weeks. So I looked at the last 4 weeks and I've sorted by average passes per game for defenders and successful ones this is. And Fofana is averaging 66 passes per game in the last 4 games. So that means he's hitting tier 1 and very much on the cusp of tier 2, virtually every game in the last 4. So he's now suddenly on high alert as a very, very cheap route into a centre-back who gets passing bonus, which is even 2 million less than Gabriel, because kind of he was our entry point for that, really, and Zuma, 8 million. And now Fofana's another 2 million less. So it's one to keep an eye on, especially if they go to a back 5. I think when Evans, Fofana and Soyuncu are all fit, if they're all playing in the same back 3, you'd expect passes.
That's
but they're
definitely
having a lot of injuries.
because as we know in Sky, these are the sort of players we love to get. These are the sort of you put them in the team, absolutely cheap enablers, but somehow are going to trot out somewhere around 5 to 10 points every match if they can keep a clean sheet as well. But they're definitely getting those passing tiers. Saves tier 2, Pope, Henderson and Meslier are amongst the ones I picked out there. I am still sitting there with Patricio. I don't really want to use a transfer on that. So I think for me with a goalkeeper, I would like to get, say, Pope or Meslier, but I would need to do it in a sort of an in that would benefit me. So a 3-for-1 or one of those single captaincy days. We've seen it before with Pope. You get Pope in and then captain him, and then suddenly you got 9 points, 10 points coming from him.
Yeah, I actually think there's only the goalkeeper's been so tricky this season. We talked about it a lot, but for me, there's only 3 that I'd even consider now. That's Meslier because he's the cheapest starting one, and he can get bonus. Leeds have got a good run anyway. Not that the run should really matter too much for goalkeepers. Pope, just because we all thought beginning of the season he'd be probably the best at that price and was undervalued, and it's turning out that way. He's just the king of the single match day. He'll surprise you in games. I don't need to big up Pope. Everyone knows how good he is. And then the other one's just Zuma, just because if you want to go to that extra, not Zuma, sorry, Mendy at 7 million, just because it's Chelsea defence and he's the cheapest premium one, and they can obviously get 7 points for a clean sheet. So they're the only 3 I'd consider right now, and probably I'd edge just to Meslier just because it saves you so much more money, and it's what else you can do with the rest of your team moving forward.
Yeah, I think if you've got no Leeds coverage, Meslier could be an in because Leeds are a captaincy shout coming up for this coming game week. On to tackles, tier 2. Wan-Bissaka is someone I always think maybe. Is it going to be... Do I get Wan-Bissaka in now? And so you never know. KDB there. KDB almost got the full sweep of tiers. Armstrong, Basuma, Phillips and Anguissa. Phillips is interesting. He is picking up tiers quite a lot. I'm seeing him I'm reading out his name since he came back from injury and before. He's an interesting one. Once again, if you don't have Leeds coverage, could be nice, safe, dullard pick there. And shots tier 2, KDB, Calvert-Lewin, Sterling and Werner. It's nice to see Sterling there as an alternative, but I think if most people have got KDB, you're probably not going to look elsewhere to get Sterling.
No.
So I think it's just not going to be his year. Werner, now he's a player I'm considering getting in, especially because he's up against Everton next, although I probably won't get him for that match, which is annoying, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Let's have a look at your team.
Hang on, Calvert-Lewin. Calvert-Lewin is again shots. I swear he's got it virtually every week. He's been the bane of my life because I haven't got him in Sky, and he's just so consistent every week. And then obviously got that, was it hat trick he's had or a brace or something against Fulham? And again, I mean, everyone keeps talking about getting rid of him because the fixtures are poor. Obviously, Digne's out. Everton haven't looked quite up to their standard, but he's just so cheap, and because he's got those shots on target that he always gets. I mean, are you looking to remove him, or you've removed him, haven't you?
Calvert-Lewin's gone. He went for Salah, so it was part of Cancelo and Calvert-Lewin for Salah and Vestergaard, and so I can't complain getting Salah in, definitely, but it was with a heavy heart that Calvert-Lewin went.
I'm just hoping that this is finally going to be the end of me, but something tells me it's not. He's just going to keep on punishing me the whole season.
He's just going to keep
still going to ignore him.
I think he will. We were talking about him on the Scoutcast this week, and we had the FPL Prince on, who is an Everton fan as well. He was talking about Calvert-Lewin, and even in these tough games, he's missing Luca Dean, he's missing Coleman, he's especially missing Luca Dean, and the crossing chances there. But he is still benefiting from Rodriguez, and he is still benefiting from Richarlison in the team. So, I think he's going to tick along. I think looking at the fixtures, I can't see, they don't look Calvert-Lewin Hall material, but they look like points. Could be getting a goal, I mean, in Sky, you're talking shooting tier 2 and a goal, and hey presto, that's 10 points or so. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, it's like Diaz is obviously 9.1. Everyone wants him in their team because he gets the passing tier 2. But Calvert-Lewin's 9.3, and he also is basically getting tier 1 or tier 2 every game. So it's not much different. And obviously with you'd expect with the likes of Calvert-Lewin, he's got the more chance of actually returning,
Yeah.
a goal or a brace or a massive score. Diaz, I suppose, has obviously got that in his locker if he gets the clean sheet and the goal in a game, which do look like they're coming at some point. He's so threatening. But yeah, it's just an observation that everyone seems keen to get rid of him. But I mean, I haven't. I suppose it's because I haven't got him, and it's like, oh, for God's sake, this guy. And
Yeah.
I'm just hoping he actually stops
Well, I
scoring.
might get him back. I've got Vardy, and I'm not keen on keeping Vardy long term. So I might get Calvert-Lewin back, and cheers, thanks for the departing gift of Salah, and welcome back again in a sort of daisy chain effect.
It's these guys like him, I think Ings and Bamford, these guys who have a lot of shots on target and are not quite at that premium price, are still close to being premium forwards themselves.
Yeah.
So it's hard to ignore. Just so many places I want inside. There's so many defenders I want, so many strikers, and now, I mean, midfielders again. It sort of changes from week to week. It's like sometimes we want 5 midfielders, and other times I just want De Bruyne and Fernandes basically now, and Grealish. That's about it.
Well, I've got your team up on the screen now. So you've got Martinez in goal, Zuma, who's what a legend Zuma is this season. Lamptey, what a non-legend he is. Diaz, legend. Ward-Prowse doing well. De Bruyne, obviously, is him. Barnes, who we've spoken about earlier. Grealish, well, he's just going to stay, isn't he? Even if he misses a game, I still want him. Fernandes, Kane and Salah. So you've got a 3-5-2. That looks quite flexible at the moment because we've talked about a lot of defenders and strikers. You talked about the likes of Bamford and Calvert-Lewin. So you've got it looks like quite a nice formation for what you want to get, which is...
So Barnes is going to go to Bamford. So it's going to be 3-4-3, the old classic. And Ward-Prowse is sort of my make-weight player, really. He's good for the moment because you covered the captain day. He can go to Gabriel. He can go to whoever, really, at that price. There's quite a lot around there that I like. I mean, even Reece James, 7.8 million. If he continues to play, I might have to just double up on the Chelsea defence.
Yeah. That's
kind of my flexible spot. So I know... before we try to use transfers on the premium assets and bring them in for certain days and stuff, and that makes sense. But for me, I've got De Bruyne, I've got Bruno Fernandes, I've got Kane, I've got Salah, and I can't see any reason to get rid of any of them or chop and change. Even when there's 3-1s and stuff, I'm just happy to keep them.
That's it. I mean, we can look at, and it's really that's the fun bit of Sky. Really look at that strategy. Look at where can I get 3-for-1s? Where can I get rid of that player and then take advantage of another player with a great fixture. But yeah, sometimes I just think I don't care whether they got a bad fixture. Or like with Grealish, I don't even care that he's missing a game because I just want him long term. We only have 40 transfers all season, and I don't particularly want to use one with there. And so at the moment, I couldn't do the Fernandes out and then in a roundabout way with Salah, then get Fernandes back.
Yeah, or a Southampton.
So I've got Fernandes for the City game. I don't care. I want him. I'm just fine with him just sitting there. And Kane as well. I don't want to be messing around with Kane.
No. I mean, I agree that if you take them out and you get 3 games, and even if the one Kane scores like he did in this game, or Bruno gets 1 goal, you're probably still likely to be slightly up on the deal. But is it worth the 2 swaps if you want them back? And that's always the debate. And for me, at the moment, these 4 guys, De Bruyne, Kane, Salah, Fernandes, are just so good. That I suppose if it was a different season where if I knew all the games and COVID wasn't a thing and stuff, then I'd be more inclined to take these risks. But because I'm getting low on swaps, the tactical swaps are right at the back of my mind at the moment. Unfortunately.
Well, yeah, I mean the fact I couldn't do the Fernandes Salah hokey cokey manoeuvre last week, but I could because Cancelo is still a rotation risk, whether he got 10 points or not. He's still not a player I particularly want long term. And Calvert-Lewin or Salah, if you weigh up those 2 ones, Salah's always going to win. Salah against anyone is going to win usually. Unless it was prime Van Dijk last season. So for me, that's that was a strategic move. I wasn't. It was just it fitted with my team, but it wasn't. It didn't sort of fit in with the greater strategy of Sky, if there is such a thing.
Well, the one I did genuinely almost do, and I put it in my chat groups and stuff, was take Bruno Fernandes out for Zaha, because Zaha has three games which were very, very good games,
Yeah,
and he would have. Um, so I'm saying I don't want to do those moves, but that one would have paid off straight away in
yeah,
game week one. I think he was the highest scoring player this
yeah. He
week, and
was.
then I'd have another two excellent games for him. And obviously, then Bruno would only miss the Man City game. But the thing is, Bruno could score in that Man City game, and suddenly it'll be more level. There might only be sort of 10, 15 points between them by the time I come to the end of that cycle. And then if I don't want Zaha long term, even though he is a great pick, he's just not for me. So then you're using two swaps, isn't it? So the joys of Sky.
Indeed, indeed. So I'll move on to my team here because it's a bit different. So I've got Patricio. I've got a 4-3-3 with Zuma, Vestergaard, who I captain there, Dallas, White, De Bruyne, Grealish, Fernandes. I mean that three in midfield. I just like looking at that three. And then the three up top: Kane, Vardy, and Salah. So for me at the moment, I've got a quite an enabler heavy defence.
Yeah.
One of them could go at some point. I'm not. I don't feel quite comfortable having three of those players. So White, it'd probably be White who would go, and then up front Vardy is going to go at some point as well. But Kane and Salah, I'm just going to keep. But looking at that, I mean, one thing. I mean, I took this screen grab of my team after I set my captains for the coming week, and we're going to come to that on in a set. Game week 14 captains. We've got 6 of them. And I quite like looking at that because you've spoken before about favouring the attacking player over a defensive player, and sometimes a defender like Zuma or Vestergaard, that can work, but more often than not, you want your KDBs, you want your Salahs at the moment, and that's why. So I've got the captaincy there on De Bruyne, Grealish, Fernandes, Salah, and Vardy. I've really gone for that and really attacking that game week 14, and then it's poor old Dallas there at the back. But I don't mind that.
No, I think out of all of them, that's one that the Leeds and West Ham game, that could be. I know Leeds are gung ho, but West Ham have tried to be very, very tight in all their games, haven't they? I mean, at least I'd expect. I think Dallas is going to be playing defence this time. I swear, as we're doing this, they've just tweeted out the lineup as Mbeg has already confirmed
he did this in the Championship as well.
Oh, right.
People like journalists saying, "Oh, who are you going to pick? Is so and so going to pick?" And he just goes, "Hang on a minute there." And I've got the team sheet here, and just reads it out to people.
Brilliant,
amazing.
Well, I only had a very quick skim, but it looked like to me that Dallas might be in defence because they've got defenders out. Because Llorente's not playing and Rodrigo will play, so that's a forward coming in for a defender, which means Dallas will play in defence, which means he's got a good chance of passing and tackles. I could have that wrong because it was a very quick skim of the lineup, but to me that's pretty good.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Definitely, it's the good thing is he's definitely going to play, which is quite nice. But we get to see the lineup anyway. It seems a fitting point to have a look at game week 14 because it's absolutely huge. It's so huge I could barely squeeze it on the screen. So I'll have a look on another screen here, so because I haven't got my magnifying glass out, do enlarge it on the screen if you're looking at this, because there is so many fixtures here. Right, let's go with the Friday. We've only got one fixture: Leeds against West Ham. I've already said Dallas, so you're thinking perhaps getting Bamford in.
So Bamford will be. I mean, he's already told me he's going to start. So unless he gets injured or COVID in between, then it will be Bamford for me in that game. I'm more than happy with that, and I hope that he finally comes through with. Well, he came through last week, but if we go by his XG, he should be scoring about 4 goals in that game. So hopefully.
Yeah. So on to the Saturday, we have Wolves against Villa. Grealish, obviously a good pick there. Newcastle against West Brom. The indications are that will go ahead because Newcastle have been back in training this week, so they should get some form of players out. Who it will be? I mean, if you've got, look out for team news towards the end of the week, but not one I would target for the captain anyway. Manchester United against Man City. Obviously, KDB and Fernandes, good shouts. And Everton against Chelsea. I think that's a really good fixture for Chelsea. Everton's defence is absolutely appalling at the moment. And Werner is getting chances. In fact, loads of Chelsea players are. I'm tempted this day to captain Zuma, but I'm not sure. I think I may go for KDB or Fernandes. Just your policy, favour the attacker.
I I mean, one thing I've noticed, I mean, it doesn't mean it's going to continue, but this season there seems to be a massive trend. And whenever there's been a popular captain for an attacking team, they've delivered like
Yeah,
every single time. And we've had plenty of seasons, those who played Sky for a long time, where we've had the whole seasons where there's even individual match days and everything, and the captain's just failed every time. And it's really put
yeah,
you off bringing in these people.
yeah,
But this season, every single time you've got like that popular player in a decent match day, they seem to get some sort of return.
yeah,
Um, I think mine will be Bruno on this day. I know that Bruno's obviously better away from home, and is exceptional. And he has been just in ridiculous form. But for me, that's kind of like an away game, probably,
yeah,
because it's Man City and they'll keep the ball a lot. They'll press us. They'll try to attack. And that suits Man United down to a T. They'll counter. And there's no better player in the league at the
yeah.
moment that's sort of finding those counter-attacking spaces than Bruno Fernandes. So although I think Man City might even win the game, are in better form. De Bruyne's, arguably the better player. But I just think Bruno, it kind of will suit him. So that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, for me, I'm slight. I mean, I've got it on KDB at the moment. Could be Fernandez. I think I have actually. I'm just going to look back at my team. Actually, I've completely forgotten who I put that on. Yeah,
Either one. It's a toss up at the end of the day. No one
yeah.
can call how that's going to go.
Yeah.
If you can, then fair play. But for me, I mean, it could easily be that Man City just dominate the game.
Yeah.
Man United's morale's dropped after the game.
I think Grealish could be a good bet because he's going to start. I mean, you get to see the team sheet anyway. Wolves' defence, because Jimenez is out. Wolves are not. They're a good team, but they're not a good Premier League team at the moment because they're still in a position where if you take out one of their key components, whether it be Doherty or you take away Johnny in defence and now currently Jimenez, suddenly they're just not the outfit they should be. Whereas loads of other teams, say for example Liverpool, especially now they've got Jota, you can take out one of their front three, put Jota in, and they're still a great side. But Wolves sort of coming apart a bit. So there's an option there. Moving on to the Sunday, we got Southampton against Sheffield United. Good fixture for Ings. If anyone got Ings in, not sure they would have been a good Maverick manager to get him in, even though he wasn't in the starting 11 against Brighton. But if he's in your team, Southampton against Sheffield United could be good. Palace against Tottenham, Fulham against Liverpool, Arsenal, Burnley, and Leicester, Brighton. So for me, Salah, but there are other options.
Kane's there.
Kane,
Son.
There, Palace are, like Arsenal, are weak on their right. Son plays on the left. And as we saw, Kane passes to Son scores. That's what happens when they're against teams who are weak on their right. We made these sort of predictions on videos in the past, and they're always delivering because Kane and Son are always delivering at the moment. So
Palace and Spurs play very similar, don't they?
Yeah.
They sit deep and they try. I mean, they use Zaha, and Spurs obviously use Son.
Yeah.
Palace don't really have a Kane to feed their Zaha. That's probably the only difference. Not the only difference, but you get my point. They kind of play. So I think both teams. I mean, normally Palace will sit back and counter, but Spurs will actually be on the front foot in this game, you'd expect. So I don't really know how that one's going to go. It's going to be interesting.
There's definitely options there, and I don't think they're bad captain shouts at all. But yeah, for me, I'm just going to go ultra safe Salah against Fulham.
I think I'll do the same. Yeah.
Moving on, we have. I just wanted to mention actually the Leicester Brighton game. So I have Vardy. I'm going to keep Vardy for that game. Now after that Sunday, on the ahead of Tuesday, I am going to switch out Vardy, I think, for Werner, because I quite fancy having a Chelsea attacker. I think Werner's good. Werner is due a big haul, and I don't know when it's going to come. And it could be any game. And as I said, I don't fancy Wolves at the moment. So you've got Wolves against Chelsea, Man City against West Brom. I wouldn't be captaining a Chelsea player, just getting him in over Christmas. Quite like it. Or I could go for a double, Reece James perhaps. I think double Chelsea defence is quite a good attack strategy over Christmas period. But yeah, Man City against West Brom. It's 8:00.
That's the annoying one, isn't it?
That's what's putting me off captaining KDB potentially. And I know he's the obvious captain, but he's also a really good chance to rest him. And it's trying to second guess Pep, whereas you're going to get the team sheet in with Chelsea. You know that Wolves are not a great form at the moment. Something to ponder. On to the Wednesday. Arsenal against Southampton, Leeds, Newcastle, Leicester, Everton, Fulham, Brighton, Liverpool, Tottenham, and then West Ham, Palace. Yeah, who are you thinking that day?
It's tough, isn't it? Um, I mean, Bamford at home to Newcastle. I kind of like that. I just
Yeah,
feel like, I mean, we obviously don't know what state Newcastle are going to be in, but that looks like a pretty good game to me. So I may go that route. But to be honest, when Salah's at home, I mean, even if he's away, to be honest, but he's at home. I know it's Spurs. I know that they'll play very defensive and try to counter, but
yeah,
will that work against Liverpool? I'm not so sure. I think Salah's just the obvious pick
yeah.
again there, really.
I'm gonna go for Salah. I do think Kane's a good shout that day, but I'm not really thinking of anyone else.
No, I think Son could. That's the kind of game where Son could do very well. I
Yeah.
think counter attacking. I mean, not many people have got. I don't think that many people have got him in Sky because we've got Kane. But if you've got him, I'd be tempted in that game for sure.
And then finally on the Thursday, really nice choice here. Villa against Burnley. Villa at home to Burnley. Grealish at home to Burnley. And Manchester United away to Sheffield United. Fernandes away. He has not blanked in any of the away games. He either massively hauls or just simply gets lots of points.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it on Fernandes, but Grealish I think is a really good shout as well.
I think as long as you own those two guys,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter who you captain, does it? Because even if one hauls and one doesn't, the disparity between points isn't going to be that great. So, yeah, mine will probably be Bruno as well, just because, like you said, he's Grealish is great. He's fantastic, but he doesn't. He may take penalties, but he hasn't been taking penalties. He hasn't been on many of the set pieces. You know, he hasn't got all those insurances to fall back on. He'll probably still get man of the match and a goal or something. But we all know that Pope loves these kind of individual days as well, so I wouldn't be stunned if Pope pulled out a worldie in that one. I'll just go with Bruno.
Another good chat. But I think what it shows is that there aren't tremendous amount of days where I think, I've got to rip up my team, I've got to get, use all these transfers to get a particular player in. It's more like I quite fancy getting that player in, or there's no must-haves because I think myself and hopefully a lot of the viewers and listeners already have the likes of KDB. I think if you don't have, if you're trying to wing it without KDB at the moment, just have a rethink. Just have a word with yourself.
I think KDB and Bruno are the ones that stand out. Nearly every day, if they're involved, they're always one of the prime ones to pick. It seems so. I think you need to have those two in your midfield, really. I hate saying need, but I mean, I didn't have Bruno, and I basically made 5 swaps to make sure I could get him, which normally I would have never have done, but that's how important I saw him, and so far it's paid off, and I don't doubt it will season long.
Yeah, it will pay off. Let's have a look at some community questions. Got a couple of questions here. Dan McKenna and Dan Cox asking very similar things here. Dan Cox, who of course has won it and does a very good pod and vid himself on Sky. Dan McKenna, how many transfers are each of you planning to have left for after the second overhaul? The second overhaul is game week 22, I believe.
6th of Feb, yeah.
Yeah. Is there a bare minimum of optimal number you should be aiming at? And Dan Cox is thinking about a bit sooner. How many do you have planned to use by New Year's Day? So New Year's Day is by game week 17, I think. That's the end of, and so we have a little break then for the FA Cup. How about you? I mean, do you have a set figure in mind, or?
I don't really, because I mean it's hard, isn't it? Because these games we don't have the full schedules. Obviously, we're having lots of individual match days, so it's tricky to say for sure. But what I do know is when the wildcard happens, the overhaul, we've got 15 game weeks after that. Now some will be doubles and stuff, so there'll be more games in that time. It's a very busy period. Some teams may be in Champions League, some teams may have given up or be on the beach towards the end of it. There's all sorts of things to take into account. So I think my normal rule is obviously 1 per game week. So there's 15 game weeks from that point of overhaul to the end. So I would say 15 swaps is your bare minimum. Yeah. That's what I would look at. However, as for all those reasons I just mentioned, I feel like having some insurance there would be ideal. So I think between 15 and 20 is absolutely fine. And I'm going to aim for that. 20 is probably what I'll aim for. If I've got more, then absolute bonus.
That's exactly what I've written down there for the second overhaul. I've actually put 16 because 15 is my minimum. I'd really ideally like to have somewhere like 16. If I end up somehow with 20, I think that's reasonable. If I've got more than 20, I'll probably start thinking to myself, I think I could have used those a bit earlier, and I could have made some gain, and I didn't. So. But game week 17, so that's New Year. I'm hoping to have 20. So there's around about 20 fixtures left. So I definitely want 20. If I have 25, I wouldn't be annoyed. But I'm not sure I'm going to use 6 transfers from now till then, though. I think I might only use about 2 or 3. But then there's injuries, there's COVID. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In my mind, I'm going to have right now, I haven't written down any tactical swaps from now until New Year's Day. I will have in my mind somewhere around 26, 27
yeah,
transfers left at that point, but I know that that's not going to happen. There will be an injury somewhere or a game suspension or
yeah.
something that will happen. I mean, already just threw 2 away on Antonio last week just for shits and giggles. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, with my setup there, Vardy and one of my enablers in defence, and then possibly I might need another one there. So I've got 31. So in an ideal world, I'm going to come into New Year with 27, 28 possibly. But yeah, as you said, I don't think it's going to work that way. 25 probably. 25 would be what I think. If I'm down to 20, that's probably because there's been some mass injury. Well, there had to have been a brawl or something involving all my players, and they're all just beating each other up.
Yeah, this is almost. I mean, it's taken us a while, but I feel like most Sky managers are probably in that lull period now, where we know who the good players are at their price points. Now we know that there's a pool of around sort of 20, maybe 25 at a stretch players that are fantastic picks, and therefore I don't think you really should be using that many swaps outside of injury. And then, as I said, the tactical ones are fine. The Bruno to Zaha last week would have worked absolutely fantastic. That's good. But I don't think there's any need to make mass changes to your team now and like use 4 or 5 because we all know who the good players are. I don't envisage it changing much from now to the end of the season, at least at the moment.
If I can somehow get into New Year with say 28, I'm gonna treat myself to a luxury kicking out of Patricio, a ceremonial booting out for my team just for a few weeks. But maybe that'd be a luxury move for me. Let's move on to some other questions. Auto Reclose, KDB versus Bruno for the next game week. Who wins?
No, we just discussed that, didn't we?
They both win.
I'm going Bruno,
Yeah.
but I mean I could easily have egg on my face and KDB win that. I mean, the fact he's asking the question, he knows it's an impossible question to answer.
They are both good. Have them both. I can understand why people don't. Some managers will not have them at the moment because they're sort of waiting for Vardy's fixtures to move Vardy out back to Fernandes if they've got Salah in that sort of move. So completely understandable. So this week, some of those fixtures, I think you can afford not to have Fernandes for the Manchester derby, but. Yeah, they're both good. Keep having both. Kyle, is it worth doing a straight swap from Chilwell to Zuma and using the funds further down the line to do some jiggling and upgrade Dallas to Zuma, or move Dallas to Zuma and bring in Bamford for Leeds cover? So basically, the long shot of it is it worth Bamford over Dallas, and is it worth getting Zuma over Chilwell? For me, Bamford. Yes, is good, but. That sounded like a lot of moves to me, and it sounded like if you've got Chilwell, just unless you need to get rid of him, I think Chilwell's still a good option.
Yeah, I'd love to have Chilwell on my team, and I did have Chilwell on my team, but I made that pretty much exact move where I've swapped him to Zuma just so I could afford to do other things. Well, basically for me, it was to enable to get Bruno Fernandes. I had no choice; I had to get rid of him. So, I think you do have to get. Well, if you need the money. Then Chilwell to Zuma is an obvious move. He's cheaper and he's performing better. So it's as simple as that, really. I'd love to have a team or see a draft where Zuma, Chilwell... In fact, there is a team, I think, in the top 20 overall, might even be in the top 10 overall, that has Reece James, Chilwell and Zuma at the back. It's open team. You can go and have a look at it. So you can understand why he's doing pretty well because those guys are fantastic prices for what they can return.
Yeah. I mean,
get it done. Get Zuma in. Say Chilwell's going to haul, but not many people have got him, so forget it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking... I mean, one option I could do is Vardy to Chilwell or Reece James, double Chelsea defence, and then I will have money in the bank then to move Ben White to someone else. And then because I'll temporarily have 5 at the back, which I'm not keen on too long.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely...
That's the other thing you just mentioned. Reece James is also cheaper than Chilwell, and... seemingly has won that place now. So why would you pay the extra money when Reece James is doing just as well? If anything, he does better for passes, I think, just about.
This is an interesting one from Sam. He says planning to go Conser to Zuma at some point this game week.
Yeah, I've looked at that. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's looking at that strategic move of swapping Villa to Chelsea. Do I wait until the 15th, the Tuesday match, or just do it this Saturday, even though they both play that day?
So I've got an answer for this already because I looked at it. So I can understand you want Zuma. I think he's basically essential. But I feel like this week's probably not the best to do it. First of all, Conser's away to Wolves on the same day. So, yeah, you don't get that extra player, which is what he's mentioning there. Now, they could get a clean sheet in that game, so fine. Zuma versus Everton. I mean, he's probably going to he might get passing bonus, but Everton hold on to the ball quite a lot, and you can't say that Everton aren't good for goals. You'd still expect them to maybe score there. So I wouldn't do it this week. Zuma would probably got a max of 5 points in that game, I'd say. So I think you can get away with it this week. The week after, which he's saying, should I do it instead and just bring him in on the Tuesday straight away? Again, you don't get the extra player there. Now they're away to Wolves. Yeah, he could get 10 points, but you'd expect 5 is more likely. And then the thing is, Conser's playing at home to Burnley on that Thursday. I mean, you definitely want him for that game, don't you? I think, especially as you just never know what's going to happen in between. So on that day, I mean, I'm assuming he doesn't have Grealish here, for example. What happens if Bruno Fernandes gets injured in the meantime, or something happens to Bruno Fernandes where you can't use him? Suddenly you've already got your guy for Thursday. So I'd leave him in there, because then the week after, which he hasn't mentioned, you do get your extra man. So this is the time to do it. You can have Concert away to West Brom, again another pretty good game, decent chance for a clean sheet, and then Chelsea play at home to West Ham the day after. So you get your extra man as well. So that's one I would target. And I appreciate Zuma's very good, essential, could get loads of points, but I think in the next two, you'd expect probably somewhere around 10 points from the two games. Max passing bonus, no clean sheet.
Looking at the way that fixtures are going as well, if someone does have money in the bank and they have had enough of Martinez, and they could move to Mendy, I guess, as well, you would get that extra. Dave, was that right? Have I read that right?
From Martinez to Mendy?
Yeah. Just moving Villa to... Just thinking of just the switch, Villa to Chelsea, in general, could be a good idea, but you've got to plan it carefully. So I think for both of us, we both got a lot of players we love at the moment in the side. So there's not a lot we want to do, just little bits here and there, I think, at the moment. And this could be famous last words, but when those injuries and COVID strike, suddenly we're going to be down to 10. Yeah, we'll have 10 transfers burnt over Christmas, and we didn't want to. But in the meantime, we better head off now. So next week we're looking at. So this is such a huge game week. We finally finishing mid next week. So then we'll be back again looking at game week 15. A lot of the stats we have mentioned a few stats here. Particularly about looking at where teams are most vulnerable. So looking at Palace, and indeed there was Arsenal last week, in terms of looking at which side they're more vulnerable on, and that all those stats and information is in the members area at Fantasy Football Scout. So it's worth having a look at that. But in the meantime, Luke, well done on a great game week score, and same again next week. See you later.
Thanks, Joe. See you on the next one.